Bonfar. Welcome to the Historic Events channel. Don't forget to like the video by clicking the thumbs up button below. In Moscow, in 1958, babies slept outdoors to strengthen their immune systems. This practice was common and considered vital for infants' health. U.S. Army nurses enjoyed the sun while resting next to a cannon. Aboard a Coast Guard ship, they chatted and laughed, grateful for having survived the war and for being on their way home. On April 3, 1945, a U.S. soldier was photographed wearing the crown of the Holy Roman Empire in a cave in Siegen, Germany. George Carlin was arrested on May 27, 1972, for violating Wisconsin's obscenity laws after his controversial performance known as "The 7 Words You Can't Say on Television." This is a historical image capturing the moment when German troops occupied the Acropolis in Athens, Greece during World War II. In 1941, the Nazi flag was raised at the Acropolis as a symbol of German conquest and domination. This is a historic photo that captures a special moment with some of the greatest minds in physics in the 20th century. From left to right, we see Albert Einstein, Hideki Yukawa, John Wheeler, and Omi Fabre walking together in 1954. Mary, a 4-year-old girl, is shown peeling 2 cans of oysters a day in Dumber, Louisiana in 1911. This is a disturbing photo that illustrates child exploitation and the harsh labor conditions faced by some children in the early 20th century. This is a historical image of Christmas being celebrated in an underground shelter during World War II. On December 25, 1940, as London was bombarded by German attacks, people were forced to seek refuge in the city's underground caves for protection. In 1948, West Berlin was surrounded by Soviet troops, and people relied on external aid to survive. At that time, American planes arrived to deliver food and supplies to the local population, and people were photographed coming out of their homes to greet the planes. This image is an emotional representation of the pain and suffering caused by war. The child embracing and seeking comfort from a teddy bear reflects the search for safety amidst destruction and uncertainty. This is a striking image from World War II that portrays the devastating effects of the atomic bomb. Just minutes after the bomb was dropped on Nagasaki on August 9, 1945, the smoking ruins of the city were visible in the distance. This image showcases technological innovation and human creativity in ancient times. In 1957, before the existence of smartphones and digital cameras, people were already finding creative ways to take photographs. At the end of World War II in 1945, Allied forces liberated a group of Jews captured by the Nazis on a train that was taking them to a concentration camp, where they would face unimaginable cruelty. Around 1941, during the war in Singapore, the Japanese used several prisoners as target practice, an abhorrent act. This image depicts the barricade on Bosphroid and Charonne streets during the Paris Commune in 1871. The Paris Commune was a period of socialist revolution and communist government in the city of Paris, France. This color image shows an anti-fascist fighter during the Spanish Civil War of 1936, which was a conflict between Republican and Francoist forces in Spain. The fighter represents the spirit of struggle and resistance of those defending the Republic against fascism. In East Germany, in 1975, a car crashed into a building, resulting in a tragedy that killed the driver and injured many people. This image portrays Soviet farmers listening to the radio for the first time, which was a novelty for them. At that moment, the introduction of radio technology in the Soviet Union opened new avenues for communication and access to information for the rural population. This photo records a child in a military uniform in 1916. This image captures a poignant and human moment of a Serbian soldier sleeping next to his father near Belgrade during World War I. This is a famous image that captures the joy and relief following the end of World War II, a global conflict that lasted from 1939 to 1945. This image portrays the Prince of Naples, who later became King Victor Emmanuel I of Italy, holding a photo of his grandfather, Victor Emmanuel II, in 1873. Leopoldika was a heroine of the resistance against the Nazi regime during World War II, having been captured and executed at just 17 years old. However, her struggle and spirit were never broken by the enemy. This image captures a French plane flying over the fields of Paris. It is a photo from an aerial photography album, dated May 4, 1916. Albert Einstein was known for his theory of relativity and his groundbreaking work in physics. In addition to his scientific achievements, Einstein was also recognized for his active stance against racial discrimination. During World War I, airplanes were primarily used for aerial reconnaissance, but also for airstrikes, message transport, and bombings. The wedding rings removed from Holocaust victims are a poignant symbol of the brutal persecution and extermination of Jews and other minority groups by the Nazi regime during World War II. In 1944, many dogs were trained to assist in military operations, rescue searches, protection, and explosive detection during World War II. In 1938, children posed in front of the enormous Torrey Pine cabin, which was very important to the local lumber industry. Unfortunately, the Torrey cabin was burned down in 1964 and no longer exists. In the trial of Al Capone in 1931, many of his accomplices attempted to hide their faces from the public and the press. This was one of the most notorious trials of the Prohibition era and reflected the violent and clandestine nature of organized crime at the time. This young newspaper delivery boy is situated in front of a theater in downtown Seattle, which was forced to close due to Mayor Ole Hanson's proclamation regarding public gatherings during the Spanish flu pandemic of 1918. This image portrays the chaos and destruction during the war in Vietnam in 1968. Oswald Mosley is struck in the head by a stone after performing a Roman salute, a sign of support for Mussolini's fascist regime in Italy. This incident represents the opposition and discontent of the population towards Mosley's fascist ideas and his association. Beth was one of the few tattooed women of her time, and her tattoo was considered unusual and controversial. Tattoos were more common among sailors and criminals, making tattooed women quite rare. Trenches were used by warring armies to protect themselves from enemy fire and to control the terrain. Trenches were typically dug into the ground with barbed wire in front to impede the enemy's advance. These World War I gas masks were made from materials resistant to toxic gases, such as rubber and fabric, covering the soldiers' nose and mouth, filtering the air they breathed. The Kargil War was a tragic event that had lasting impacts on the region and on relations between India and Pakistan, with both sides suffering significant losses. In 1999, Ghulam Muhammad, better known as the Great Gamma, won the World Wrestling Championship and established himself as one of the most respected and dominant athletes of his time. His skill and legacy continue to be celebrated in Indian popular culture to this day. The image captures the reality of the political and social tension in Germany after World War II. In 1950, Germany was undergoing a period of reconstruction and restructuring following the end of the conflict, and the presence of a new and controversial firearm reflects the stability and uncertainty of the era.